Welcome to Rising Up for Justice, a special weekly series presented by Rising Up with Sonali, an independently produced, subscriber-supported program syndicated to radio stations, free speech TV, and podcast platforms. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host and executive producer. Our nation and our world is overrun by billionaires and bigots, but they are few and we are many. On this new series exclusive to subscribers of Rising Up with Sonali and viewers of Free Speech TV, we'll hear from organizers in the movements for social justice, and we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of values, strategies, tactics, narratives, and building power. Joining me this week is Nadia Marin Molina, co-executive director of the National Day Laborer Organizing Network, or NDLON, leading the Workers' Center and Workers' Rights areas of work. Previously, as NDLON's Workers' Rights Program Coordinator, Nadia created and led the organization's disaster response initiative to successfully train thousands of day laborers and build the capacity of the group's member organizations. I'm so pleased to welcome Nadia to the program.
Hi, Sonali. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So I live in Pasadena. I'm really familiar with NDLON. We have the Job Center here that is a central hub of the organization, but NDLON is a national organization. And yet for people who haven't heard of the work that NDLON does, how do you introduce viewers to this organization? Looking through your website, it is vast, but I remember when NDLON first started many, many years ago, and your organization has just expanded and is doing so much work in so many different avenues. How do you summarize the work, the main work that NDLON does?
Yes. Well, NDLON is a national network. At this point, we started when NDLON was founded with 9 member organizations, and now we're a national network of 70 member organizations. So you're right. The network has grown a lot. Our goal is to improve the lives of day laborers and low-wage immigrant workers. In general, we work at the intersection of immigrants' rights and workers' rights. And we believe that by organizing and supporting those who are most vulnerable, workers who are excluded and exploited, we're fighting for and protecting everyone's rights. Our member organizations are organizing at the local level in, I think it's about 23 states. We're, depending on the locality, every organization is doing some sort of either local campaign or educational work, but working together to fight for workers' rights.
I love that you really honed in on the fact that it's about the intersection of immigration and work and workers. And this is such a critical intersection because often immigrants are denounced and demonized by those in power as being a drain on society. But of course, the vast majority of immigrants who come into this country either do so to work, or if they don't, they come in and they do work. They end up contributing. They end up becoming embedded and meshed within the fabric of American society. And because they're vulnerable, it's easier to exploit them. And so that labor rights aspect of it, I think, is so interesting. How do you emphasize that immigrant worker aspect of organizing? Because you have a group that's vulnerable, at least those who are undocumented, and of course immigrants come in all kinds of immigrants, while at the same time asserting labor rights, which is the opposite of being vulnerable.
I mean, workers are, as you mentioned, immigrant workers are not just, contributing with their labor to, specific workplaces. They're sustaining entire industries in the economy of the United States. And many times people don't recognize the level to which immigrant workers, documented and undocumented, are sustaining these industries. I mean, I will mention construction, agriculture, but also hospitality work, domestic work, restaurants, many areas where immigrants are not just working within, not just an important component, but are really essential, as was recognized during the time of the pandemic, and right now has been mostly forgotten apparently. But for us, it's always important to emphasize both immigrants' rights and workers' rights. So we're in our education work, for example, related to we talk about workers' rights related to wages, right? Health and safety rights, because those are the things that every day, day in and day out, workers on the street corners or on the job are dealing with. They're dealing with employers who don't pay them for the work that they've done, or conditions on the job that may be dangerous. In addition to all of the issues that come up related to immigration, racism, harassment from the police, all of those things, and those have been issues since the beginning, since NDLON was founded.
What are the main goals of the organization? Are and it's important, of course, for us to see it as specific goals when we think about how organizers aim for a final sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Are we talking about legalization, unions? What are specifically NDLON's main overarching goals?
I mean, we're a very I would say a very practical organization. We in our mission, I think reflects that. By our mission, in some ways, seems very simple, right? To improve the lives of day laborers and low-wage immigrant workers. And I think that is because we try to focus on goals which, mostly where we can actually make a difference, right? We try to set organizational goals where there is something that can be achieved and where workers can see that there is something positive that can come out of it, that will actually benefit their lives, right? And that there are actual concrete achievements that come out of our work. Workers who are, as I mentioned, the beginning of the organization was founded specifically related to day laborers, although now member organizations work with all workers in multiple industries, but day laborers are going to the corners or going to worker centers every day to look for work. Um, and their goal for that day is to get a job and to get a good job, a decent job. And so there's an important component of NDLON, which is supporting member organizations, just in making sure that workers are able to get those good jobs locally. And then, as I mentioned, training and supporting workers with regard to their rights and to their ability to defend those rights. But we also do, education, litigation, policy advocacy, communications work. We have a Radio Jornalera. We do a lot of arts and culture in support of a movement. We have a day labor band, so we have a bunch of different areas of work, but it's all geared towards figuring out what are some things that will allow us to make some concrete steps towards
Right.
um, workers' lives becoming better.
So the worker centers, I understand, are places where instead of workers being alone and vulnerable and at the whims of employers who might take advantage of them because of either language barriers or legal issues, the worker centers are there as a go-between, ensuring that workers are not exploited, that they get a living wage, that they're properly paid, that all the requirements are upfront, and also that the employer gets good quality work, right?
Yes, the worker centers are the local manifestation of that goal, that workers are able to get jobs and that those jobs are decent.
So
The
instead of
local worker
instead of hiring
centers,
someone at a Home Depot parking lot, which these days we know are dangerous places to be, one can go into a worker center to get a
that
job or to hire someone.
that's right. And workers, so at worker centers, they'll set a minimum wage for that center or for that region. They'll establish certain health and safety guidelines. They'll often offer trainings to workers, some of which are required sometimes before going out to work, like OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 trainings, to make sure that workers are trained. And then they'll support the workers in case that the employers do violate that agreement. I will say that the organizations, many work with both workers who are in the centers and out on the corners. It's important to us to support workers whether they decide to go to a day labor center or decide to look for work out on the corners. You're right, it's more risky to go to look for work at a Home Depot, and those workers are face greater challenges every day. But it's important for us to defend that right because day laborers and this organization fought for workers to be able to have the freedom to stand on a street corner anywhere in the country, and we won that the confirmation of that constitutional right in court, so that workers have the freedom to look for work anywhere, right? There are limited numbers of day labor centers that we can establish or that can be established in different parts of the country. There are many more corners where workers are able to organize themselves and look for work there.
The legal work is also really quite crucial, right? And there are many legal organizations that are doing immigrant justice work because, of course, there are many, many avenues to challenging, especially the current administration that is so rampantly violating people's rights, violating the Constitution, violating core tenets of the Constitution, such as due process. Tell me a little bit about the litigation work that NDLON is doing.
So I'll mention two areas in which we've been involved or leading in the litigation. We're a part of the National TPS Alliance, which is a national alliance of immigrants who have TPS status, temporary protected status. And we're part of the support for that alliance. And as that, we help to litigate a defense for the TPS alliance most recently in the first Trump administration to sort of hold off on the termination of TPS for multiple countries that Trump had announced. And now in this second Trump administration to fight back against the termination of TPS. The first group that was announced and that we litigated or have entered into litigation was for Venezuela, then Haiti, and now most recently for Honduras and Nicaragua, I believe.
And TPS, of course, stands for Temporary Protected Status, and the current administration has not just gone after people without papers, but is actively creating a bigger undocumented population by taking away legal protections that people had been counting on were in the country with papers and are basically being stripped of their rights. I want to talk about narrative work, NDLON's narrative work. This is one of my favorite things about the organization. You mentioned the radio station, the band, the arts and culture work. First of all, why does an organization that centers immigrant justice investing its resources in such things, in a radio station, in a band, in arts and culture? Why is this so important?
For us, it's extremely important, and the reason is that it's clear, it's clear, and it's been our experience that arts and culture is central to a movement. Arts and culture is what gives spirit and gives life to a protest. Songs are sometimes are what people take back after they've gone to a protest. They bring that with them and they bring it to somewhere else and they share it with somebody else. The arts can communicate things that are just not sufficiently communicated by your 10 points in your policy one pager, right? It's a way to communicate with people that everybody can understand. And it's a way to motivate people, especially now when we're in a situation that is many times overwhelming, depressing, right? Seeing what's going on in terms of the fascist onslaught, right? Against all of us. Arts is what allows us to express ourselves and really bring some different kinds of thinking and sometimes hope to what we're doing.
Is it also a large part of the fact that immigrants, when we come to this country, bring our culture with us. And in many parts of Latin America, especially, song and music is so central to social movements, so central to protest, right? That this is a tradition that NDLON is bringing into the United States.
I think that that's right. I think that's right that NDLON builds on those experiences that organizers who founded NDLON, really the Day Labor Band, I believe, was actually started even before NDLON itself was created, because the people who were in LA and were some of the founders were musicians, and that's just a way to reach people, that they brought, as you said, from their experience. And I think anyone who's come to an NDLON event, a training or a national assembly or any kind of event, one of the comments that they will always mention afterwards, or think one of the memories that they bring with them a lot of times is the music and the art, that they see, because it's I think it reflects the culture of the organization. And it's just, it's memorable for people, and like I said, it allows people to feel like they're part of something collective.
Right, and Los Jornaleros del Norte, which is the band, they sing in Spanish. It is a way to communicate that culture. It's also a way to reach their own people, right? Immigrants in their own language. I'm wondering if you can comment on the humanizing aspect of this narrative work, because when somebody is seen in a whole manner as a person with a history, with a context, with a tradition, with a background, with culture, cuisine, and music, they are complex, they are multidimensional, and they're harder to dehumanize.
I think that's right. I think people who, I mean, for the workers, for example, who see the day labor band, Los Jornaleros del Norte, sometimes will have tour. The band will go to different day labor corners or to centers, and perform for the workers there. And they see the band and get to enjoy the music, and receive the message that is in the music and in the songs. Sometimes it's about employers who don't pay, and sometimes it's about politicians who are lying. Whatever it is that's in the music, it's something that speaks to those workers in a different way. And I think that Los Jornaleros del Norte is just one of the most powerful parts of the organization, and that's why.
Let's also talk briefly about the Know Your Rights trainings that NDLON does around the country in this time of immense, just fear that has been unleashed on immigrant communities through ICE, which is shortly to now become the most expensive domestic military force, I believe, in the world, with a budget that was just signed off on, larger than most of the militaries of the world. How important is Know Your Rights training work, and how does NDLON do that around the country?
Well, NDLON and our member organizations across the country have been doing Know Your Rights training, specifically related to your rights, in case immigration comes. And I mention that because we've also done Know Your Rights training related to workers' rights, as well. And we believe it's extremely important, right? Because we need to be able to defend ourselves, right? Everyone needs to be able to have the basic information to defend themselves at a local level. And that is, that can only happen when everyone is able to get at least the most basic information about their rights. And that means, sometimes I've heard people say recently, well, everybody has that information, it's out there, right? And yet, when we've done outreach, there are always workers who say, oh, I haven't seen this before. Oh, I have heard of it, but I hadn't seen the information before. And so for us, it's extremely important to do outreach, to physically go and speak to people out on the street corners or out in the workplaces or at supermarkets or wherever. We have here in New York, which is where I'm based, we have a bus. And we've done tours, New York, New Jersey area, which are like, the tours of the Justice Bus, going to different day labor corners, bringing basic information, and just going out there and talking to workers to learn from what they're seeing day to day out on the corners, and also to share information. And most importantly, we think always to connect people, right? So it's about the information itself, and it's also about people having a place where they're going to connect if they know of something that happens. If ICE comes to the local day labor corner, if ICE conducts a raid, who are they going to connect to? What are they going to do? And so that part is, I would say, equally important.
Finally, tell me, Nadia, about the ways in which people can help NDLON, do solidarity work with you, participate in the work you're doing, and also the broader organizational ties that you have to other social justice organizations that fit NDLON within the broader world, if you will.
Sure. We are working in a few specific areas right now. One is we put out a call for anyone who is out there and who is progressive, who wants to figure out how to support immigrants. In particular, if you are able to take time to adopt a corner. We're calling it adopt a corner, but basically what it means is to establish a relationship with your local day labor corner, with the understanding that we and our member organizations don't have the ability, the capacity to reach every single place, every single corner where day laborers are looking for work. And yet, day laborers are some of the most vulnerable targets because of this racial profiling, and the quotas that I mentioned that the administration has. I mean, there have been multiple raids in California and here in New York where they've just gone to a Home Depot or to another day labor site and just, rounded up people and arrested groups of people. Um, and and so we're asking people to be part of, to begin to be part of a line of defense. And one of those lines of defense is at the day labor corners. We're inviting people to national Zoom trainings, and we've had an excellent response. We had over 1,000 people for our first training on adopting a corner, and we've had hundreds for other trainings that we've done. So we're continuing to build that. That's also connected then to our ICE Out campaign, which is basically saying ICE should be out of our communities, right? Like ICE should not be uh, collaborating with our local police departments. It should not be collaborating or, using our fire departments, which has happened here. It should not be in the Home Depot parking lots. It should not be, on our bus stops or in our schools locally. And so there have been ICE Out campaigns, ICE Out of schools or ICE Out of Home Depot campaigns in different parts of the country. And people have just, started those campaigns locally in order to push against ICE everywhere in our communities. And yeah, there are many ways for people to get involved. We want to, at this point, it's important to us to reach people who maybe have never been involved before, with supporting day laborers, with or have never been activists for immigrant workers' rights, but there are many people who want to figure out how to get involved, and we're trying to figure out ways that are easy for people to connect. Hire a day laborer, right? We've mentioned where day laborers are looking for work, and now it's more dangerous than ever. And if you have the need in terms of a local job, or of one and can connect a day laborer with it, then that's also an excellent way to contribute. So there are many ways that people can get involved and get active, ranging from acts of nonviolent civil disobedience, against ICE, to any of the other ones that I mentioned. And in terms of allies, I mean, we have always allied with faith leaders locally, with unions, depending on the locality. And so it really depends. But I would say, been fortunate to be able to find allies in many places. I think right now, as an immigrants' rights movement, there are many people who want to support, and we all need to figure out how to bring in all of these people, because we need as much support as we can get. Based on the passage of this supposedly beautiful budget bill, the current situation is going to get worse, right? The number of raids that they had will be multiplied. The number of officers that they have, the number of agents, the number of detention spaces, all of that is going to be multiplied exponentially. And so it's important for us to also multiply in terms of our ability to defend, right? To grow our defense. And that's our right now, that's our goal. And fortunately we've had a good response, and we hope to keep growing.
Give out the website for NDLON and social media as well.
Sure. The website is NDLON, NDLON.org. We are on Instagram as @Day Labor Network. And you can also find Radio Jornalera, which is Radio Jornalera, and on Facebook as NDLON, just NDLON.
I want to thank you so much, Nadia, for joining us today, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
My guest has been Nadia Marin Molina, Co-Executive Director of the National Day Laborer Organizing Network, or NDLON, leading the Workers' Center and Workers' Rights area of work. This is Rising Up for Justice, and I'm Sonali Kolhatkar, host and executive producer of this new weekly half-hour series exclusive to viewers of Free Speech TV and subscribers of my long-standing program Rising Up with Sonali. You can find out more at risingupwithsonali.com.